Hey there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Welcome to our episode. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation magazine, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, Suwanee, Georgia, about 20 miles north, just below the Buford Dam on Lake Lanier. Anyway, hope everybody's doing great out there. Country's still going crazy. Never a dull moment in the United States in election year. Everything's going crazy, but we're going to have fun tonight. Got a great episode tonight. Our guest is one of my favorite specialized contractors. His name is Robert Smith, or he goes as Bob Smith. He is the Director of Business Development and National Accounts for Rockerz Inc. And they specialize in concrete polishing. And for those of you who don't know all about it, he's going to tell you. But this is a really cool project. There's so many different things that you can do with it. And it's architectural stimulating. It's the foundation of any facility. It can give your facility the look that no one else has. And it's got a lot of advantages of installing, maintenance, and all that good stuff. But we're going to he's the expert. I'm not. I'm just your host. So with that said, Bob, welcome. Say hello to our Coffee Talk fans out there.
Hey, everybody. David, thank you for inviting me onto the show. Actually, it's fantastic. I actually feel really honored that you brought me here. I'm super excited to talk about polished concrete and maybe even some of the things that are going on in this country in relation to retail and construction. So it's going to be, I'm hoping to have a good time here. So I'm very confident that.
So you're out of Western Pennsylvania, correct? Steel Town.
Western Pennsylvania, 10 miles north of Pittsburgh, in a small town, Cranberry, Pennsylvania is where we're based out of. Actually, you'll see Warrendale, but Warrendale's like this big, and then there's Cranberry. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been to your office. Really cool place. Great food. Western Pennsylvania to the max. It's everything that you could picture it. If you think about Western Pennsylvania, Warrendale's got it. So that's the way that, I'm from Philly, so I'm from the eastern side, but it's got that Western look. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just does. So
yeah, we have a nice little office. You've been in there. We call it the client retention area. It's more of a bar area.
It is one of the coolest offices I've ever been to. And believe me, I've been around 20 some odd years and have been, retailers, hoteliers, corporate facilities, I've seen all of them. That office is bitching. Okay. It just is. Really cool. If you ever have a chance, go in and just go look at the office. They got the coolest little bar set up, awesome pictures. It's worth a visit. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, some of my videos you might see. We do a lot of our backdrops in our office retention area or client retention area. So it's got a little bit of a rock and roll feel. That's kind of been our shtick, our theme. So yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely rock and roll. So give us your story. Tell us where you grew up, where you went to school, after school, how you got into construction, and how you ended up at Rockerz. And go ahead, the platform's yours.
Yeah, so thank you, David. Well, I went to college at a Division II school, probably 45 minutes north of here, called Slippery Rock University. Had an absolute blast. It was the right thing to do, but I really had no direction in life. My dad was a salesman. I did not want to get into sales. But I guess as you get older, you start picking up little things in life and some experiences. I worked for a private equities firm called the Bank of New York Mellon. At the time that the Bank of New York merged with Mellon, they went through a series of layoffs that kind of forced my hand a little bit to say, man, I need to get the hell out of here. My uncle at the time he runs a general contracting business, and he also has a flooring division. And I don't know, he saw something in me. And he says, I want you to see if you can sell polished concrete. You need to change things around. So, I got in the front door there with, I got lucky because I was at a dead end part of my career in private equities, didn't enjoy it at all. So I walked into a situation which was more kind of like, professional, but it was kind of blue collar. Long story short, I started with this company in 2012. So I'm running on 8 years now. And one of the ladies had asked, I don't understand why you're walking away from a company that's never going to go away. And you have a job for life, basically, matching 401k at like 25 some vacation days. And here I'm walking into a company that might be gone for like in a couple of weeks,
Right.
and I had to argue I need more than 5 vacation days. So anyways, I took a shot. My wife didn't really like it because we were trying to grow, and
Sure.
it was the best decision that I've ever made. We went from $1 million a year with really crappy margins, and so we're now at about $12 million a year with really, really good margins. We've grown since then to 5 locations. When I started, we only had our location in the Pittsburgh, Warrendale area, and now we have offices in Ocala, Florida, Fort Worth, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, and we're putting one in near the Utah area very shortly.
And in those locations, you've got your equipment and so forth, so you don't have to ship it. It's staged correctly, correct? I know
That's
when I was
correct.
there, I saw all the equipment in the trailers and all the polishers and all that stuff.
Yeah, for anybody who understands how polished concrete works, you need to have your own equipment. You need to understand and live and die by your own systems. And the only way to do that is to control it by having your own equipment. So rather than traveling all the way to California from Pittsburgh, we have guys that come from Phoenix, Utah.
Sure.
When we're in the Midwest, we have guys that come from Texas, and they're all running the same systems, the same machines, and we're communicating every day, talking on Zoom. And it's been a really, really nice success. The guys that are working with us in those offices as well buy into the system, and they've been very successful at it.
It's just like a retailer, whether you go into a Gap in LA or New York or Texas, you basically know what it's going to look like and the jeans are going to look like. So you might as well have the consistency with the workmanship as well as the equipment. I mean, I'm a publisher, so I've switched printers a couple of times, even though it's the same printing press and it's printing press, paper, ink. Sometimes the magazines look different, and it's
You've got to wonder
running
too.
a machine. It's the same gig.
That's right. We've had some failures, obviously, prior to when I got there. Not to say it was all from me. Obviously, Dan Montoni is our vice president of operations.
Mm-hmm.
He is the periodic table of everything, that the science behind why this is this way, why the speed is run that way. And he's really honed in on the operation side to really drive in a specific process that's consistent. And so some of the things we've learned in the past, from past failures and some successes, we're able to apply that to each location. And that's why we've been successful all the way around. So, we've actually had guys that say, look, I want this crew on our floor. It's like, well, he can't do every single floor, but we have this guy with the same machine, the same process. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we really strive for is that consistency. When you have a retailer that's doing, so many stores per year, and they have a guy that maybe subs it out, you never really know what you're getting, if you can even get in a hold of them if they screw up the floor. But we have the ability and obviously the capital capabilities to be anywhere at any time.
So what are the advantages of, obviously, and I mean, you basically target retail, but, I'm in commercial construction, so it's retail, hospitality, restaurants, federal, multifamily. It goes down, it's the whole gamut to me. So what are the advantages of a person that's building a facility, a new prototype and so forth, that what they're thinking about putting a soft surface versus a hard surface versus, possibly, polished concrete? Tell us how you go in and sell someone on concrete, on polished concrete, or renovating it to a stain, et cetera.
Yeah, generally, they first and foremost, polished concrete in its form is aesthetically pleasing. It's brand new. It's not white, boring VCT. It's not an LVT floor that kind of gets dirty and grimy. Sure, a lot of floors do get dirty, but when you look at the long-term maintenance costs on polished concrete alone, it's very minimal. And we have the ability to actually come in with cents on the dollar to reburnish your floors every 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, depending on your walk-off traffic, salt wear on the floor, or, depending on how often you maintain the floor with a floor scrubber. You don't have to wax your floors ever again. Sometimes with retailers, it's just not their brand.
Mm-hmm.
For that's their thing, and they have to have polished concrete. So, and it's a great look. It's great for branding.
Mm-hmm. The talk about, is it sustainable? Is it, because everybody's in the lead and having their, that natural look, and talk about that aspect of it.
You know, it's hard to explain until you see the transition. When you walk into a site, and I was talking to a guy who was putting in a RV park, an indoor RV park. He has about 400 some square feet. And his question was, what's this going to look like? And this building was probably hasn't been touched in like 10, 15 years, and you can tell. But what's really interesting is when you watch the process, that's the most fascinating. And unfortunately, not everybody has the ability to see that, how you take a slab from even like a relocation where you're transitioning a third or fourth generation store into a brand new retailer, and you can see that slab transition from an ugly looking slab with tons of mastic on it, tons of pothole marks, spalling, and you turn it into a floor that is smooth, shiny, and aesthetically pleasing, and it's mechanically sound. So process is there's a densification process that helps and brings in the durability of the floor too. So that is a one big selling point of how durable it is. But it's really amazing to see that transition.
So it's basically concrete. You go in, you pick a color. I mean, I'm trying to make things easy for people that don't understand what polished concrete is. You've got a slab. Either, you guys put it down, or the contractor does. You guys come in and you basically come in and give it some color, a protective coating, and you can go in any different direction. And then once it's done, the maintenance is minimal at the most, depending on what your foot traffic is and how much wear and tear is put on that particular surface, correct?
That's correct. If you look at polished concrete, more of a service, not necessarily a product. And, a lot of people will ask us, what's your square foot price? And it just bases it. It really comes down to the size of the floor, the location, and what is actually needed. So if I give you a blanket price on something that's over 15,000 square feet, we can be anywhere from $1.70 to $1.80, maybe $1.90 square foot. Now, the other things is the floor is so versatile. After you polish a floor, you can just go in and reburnish it for 20 cents a square foot after a couple of years, knowing that we've already polished it. So, part of that process is equivalent to resurfacing hardwood floors. With hardwood floors, you're using a 40 grit, something that's very aggressive to take the shellac off, to get it down to the bare wood. In this case, we're using metal bonded diamonds rather than sandpaper to scrape and grind the floor at a 40 grit, and we work our way all the way up. The machines that we use are 1,200 pounds. They run in planetary motion, which means it has 3 wheels on this big head. Each of these wheels are spinning while the other big head is spinning as well. So it creates these randomized scratch patterns, and you're grinding the floor. It has to be at a certain speed. And then you bring it all the way up to a polish. In that process, you have the option to dye the floor. And dyeing the floor is actually interesting because it's different than painting the floor. Painting is like, it's a flat topical right over top of the floor. But when you're dyeing the floor, you can accentuate the color of a gray concrete floor. Some other guys will polish floor. Other guys just do a natural look. So the admix it can be beige, it can be dark gray, it can be light gray, and it just takes on its own form just based off of the geographical location that slab is in. There are a lot of challenges along the way, and that's the biggest thing is you see things in a picture in a magazine, and you're like, that's what I want. And everybody is going to give you the absolute best. It's most likely a brand new slab that they're putting in a magazine. But the truth of the matter is that you have what we say. The unfortunate part is and this is the downside, but it's always going to be an upside ultimately because you're paying for everybody else's past mistakes. For example, retailer 1 comes in and they put LVT on the floor, or they put VCT and there's mastic doesn't come up. And the next retailer comes in and he says, I want to put something else in. Well, sometimes what they'll do is they'll put on the LVT over top of the VCT, and then something happens along the way. There's a restaurant that goes in there and they put in Corey towel, and now you want to polish a floor and you take all that stuff out, and unfortunately it costs money. So, and then if the floor underneath, you can't really see it, it does require some extra care. There's ways to go about it, and we will easily explain that to you. And we try to go direct with all retailers because of the consistency. And polished concrete is not something that everybody knows. Even for the guys that have been in construction for 30 years, they might be the expert, and I won't claim to know anything more about construction than they do. But when it comes to polished concrete, we are the experts in it, and we know how to take on these slabs and these challenges. And you'll see the consistency over time, and it'll actually be cheaper for you in the long run too.
There was a Blockbuster in our shopping center up the street, and been there forever. And then Blockbuster, obviously, I think there's only one left around, but in there they had carpet, and then the store shut down, and it just sat there vacant, and it was right on the end cap. It was a really good location, and no one would put it in there. So finally, this local restaurateur put in a restaurant that they only serve breakfast from 5 to 2, I think, in the afternoon.
Mhm.
Excellent food, but they put polished concrete in there. So they ripped up the carpet, and you would never know it was a Blockbuster if you went in there, unless you knew it was a Blockbuster. I laughed because I went in there last weekend because I said, this is a really cool project. It's a renovation from a Blockbuster, which everybody knew, to a restaurant, and what it looked like, and now what it looks like now, two different things. But they put polished concrete in there, and the stain, and it looks awesome. It just gives it a whole different feel when you go in there. And I thought it was good. Of course, trying to get people to commit to be on the cover and stuff. They might still go. I mean, timing of business is everything. But right up the street, like I said, when I walked in there, I was like, oh my God, this does not look like the same store that I knew that was here full of VHS tapes, way back when.
That's funny because I always end up, and I moved. We had to live in a temporary apartment, and right across was another hardware store. And it was very nice store, clean, amazing customer service, but it had white VCT, and it just felt old. It felt old and generic, and I just didn't want to be there. So, when you go to like these ICSC shows and they're talking about consumer experience, I haven't seen any study where it's proven that polished concrete is better. But I have talked to a lot of developers that had to make a choice between putting polished concrete in their floors or keep like the tile. I think at that point it was a marble tile. The difference, the decision was made based off of their tenant. There was a young tenant, had to be polished concrete. If it was an older tenant, then they were going to keep the floor as is. They're trying to appease. And most of the time, I mean, we are going to try to appease to the younger generation, the millennials, and whatever generation is coming up after that. But it is a very, people like that earthly, natural look. Mm-hmm. It's just more relaxing.
And the cool thing is, a lot of facilities today, they put hard surfaces in, they'll put soft in. So you might not get the whole facility, but if you can get a nice little piece of it and showcase it, the amount of foot traffic, let's say you're in a hotel, they might have all sorts of surfaces that will be in there. But that one little maybe 400 square foot area that you have it, maybe it's in the check-in area or that little area goes a long way in giving that facility that little extra, wow, that's really cool how they did that. I never thought that you could put that in there or combine it with a soft surface or a trim area or, that. So.
Well, the other interesting part about that is anytime a retailer is going from a different flooring to polished concrete, I get a lot of people who say, we've tried it, it just didn't work for us. And man, I just wonder if they just had a really bad experience with a contractor. And I'll give you one example. Ceramic tile, at least for this store, and they decided they wanted to give it a shot and go with polished concrete. And what ended up happening was they put these display walls about 2 feet from the window, and we can't fit a machine in there. Had we had known that up front, it might have changed we could have. There's a time period when you got to know when you're going to get into the store, right, prior to setting walls up.
Sure.
One of the displays in the middle of the floor, well, they screwed it up, and we had polished after that, and because we were working for the general contractor, but we polished after that. Well, they screwed up, and they had to pick up this display panel and move it 3 feet to the right, and they exposed an area that wasn't polished because we had to polish around it. So, in those areas, we just can't put flooring in there. We have to blend it in, and we have to get a generator. And so it can be a nightmare if you don't do it the right way.
Well, it's
But I've
just like
seen a lot.
painting. I mean, getting another paint, it might be a little off. You got to do it all at once. I mean, that's, but you're going to have that stuff happen though. I mean, that's just the
Right.
real.
And the point was they usually do the LVT very last. And had we come in a couple weeks, maybe a month earlier to do the floor. And there's all sorts of different parameters that we can avoid. And it's basically a give and take. A lot of times costs can get pushed upstream, or they can be put on Rockerz, whether it's put floor protection on the floor, or don't put floor protection on it and let contractors walk over the floor. So there's a lot of what ifs and a lot of changes. And I mean, we have guys with the experience from the last 20 years just in project management alone and polished concrete to know what situation is best, especially when we're designing an admix for brand new stores like grocery stores, floor flatness, floor leveling. A lot of things go into that. And it's not as easy as just running a machine over.
I mean, you mentioned, like the big box, hardware stores and that you go on the concrete. Their concrete is normally just, it's bland. Nothing against them. It's just basic. But if you go into some really, like I walk World of Concrete. If it's one of the biggest trade shows, that you go to. Obviously this year, I think it actually did happen before all the cancels. But if you ever want to see really cool projects and what you can do with concrete, oh my God. I mean, there is amazing things that you can do with that surface, let alone with all the different colors and all those different applications that you can apply. I just think it's a really cool surface. It's easy to maintain. Slip and fall obviously is an issue, but that goes with any floor. So it doesn't matter because there's always those people that are going to sue you, that are going to go do that stuff, whether you're on, someone can trip on carpet, someone can slip on LVT or polished concrete, and you can actually make that surface so it's a little rough, so you don't have to deal with some of that slip and fall too. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, you can do stuff, but it almost defeats the purpose of a polished concrete floor.
I know you want it smooth for sure.
Yeah. Well, there is the slip coefficient rating on a polished concrete floor is actually noted and studied to be actually better than that of like VCT or vinyl tile. And one of the reasons is because if polished concrete is such a flat surface, when you look at it under a microscope, concrete in a hole is like very porous under a microscope. When you're slicing through, for lack of better terms, you're slicing it completely smooth. Now you got radiant light bounce, which you get the shine, and you're actually closing the floor. It's equivalent to flat race car tires on a flat race car track. You get better traction. So certainly if you're going to douse it with water, you have to clean it up. It's not going to be, pervious to somebody slipping and falling. I mean,
if you drop a glass on, it's going to break, Yeah.
That's what you have video cameras for, to make sure they're not actually slipping or falling.
So the country's opening up. Rockerz, are you bullish? Are you bearish coming out? You're an equities guy, so I can use those terms. Where are you?
I'll tell you what, we've been very strong, even during the shutdown. We're paying attention to the CDC, creating an SOP for the, we required to purchase PPEs, all these acronyms. But, we're following the guidelines of the CDC and making sure our guys are well equipped with sanitation. We're actually doubling down on hotels. We usually put 2 guys to a room, and now we're adding more hotel rooms, so they have that social distancing. The process alone sort of lends itself to already being social distancing just during the process, but in respect to other trades. But we're keeping an eye on things in each state and each county because
they're all different.
And a lot of companies are considered essential companies that we work for. So they're allowed to continue to build, and we have the permission slips to allow us to go in there and build. So it's been trying. Our guys want to work, and that's the notable thing. I mean, I find it more amazing. We used to kind of complain about like, nobody wants to work these days anymore. But we're finding that when people are scared to be home without a job, and they're kicking butt and they're working. So, I've talked to other people in my position from other companies, and some of them have been furloughed, and some of them find it very hard to bring in new business. Luckily for me, I sort of have my hand in a cookie jar in different aspects of the company, but it was a good opportunity for me really to talk to clients that probably wouldn't really have an opportunity to talk to them about and get a little personal, see how things are going, see what the temperature is for them and how they're moving forward. So certainly some people have slowed down a little bit, but for the most part, we have just really just been going at it. I mean, luckily we haven't had any issues. So.
Hey, that is positive to hear. You hear that, commercial construction coffee talk fans out there? There's work being done. We had a retirement home getting built, a restaurant, and then I think there was a federal project that was going on. They're all outdoors, so there was plenty of room. But things were continuing on. The restaurants were shut down, a lot of the stores, but still construction was going on here in Georgia. So we saw that going on, and now things are picking up. So Bob, if someone wants to get in touch with you and talk polished concrete, how would they get in touch with you?
Best way is call my cell phone, 724-612-6520. You can always email me.
Give them your email too.
Yeah, you can email me at rsmith@rockerzinc.com. That's ROCKERZ as in zebra, INC.com.
All right, there you go. Listen, if you're thinking about polished concrete, give Bob a call. He'll take care of you. All he's asking for is a chance to prove his worth, and they will, and then some. I'm confident of that. For those of you out there that want to get in touch with me and possibly be a guest or a sponsor on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk, you can reach me at David C, like cat, David C at CCR, that's Charlie Robert, and then a hyphen or a small dash, michaelAppleGeorge.com, David C at CCR-mag.com. If you're not on our mailing list, go to my website at CCR-mag.com. Up on the toolbar, it says subscribe. Click on that, hit it, boom, it'll come to me. We'll add you to the mailing list. We're always looking for new projects and things to write about. You never know what might end up in ink, so drop me an email and we'll see where it goes from there. So Bob, always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, you too.
I normally see it at my functions every month, but everything's been virtual. I've got Triple Your Pursuit coming up on Wednesday night, so hopefully you'll have time to pop in and show us your expertise. I know if there's any equity questions that come up, you're going to get those answers right. You better.
Listen, if I was good at equities, I would have probably stayed in the business. But
hey, listen, if you don't like what you're doing, don't do it. Go do something else.
That's right.
Sure. I mean, I'm just telling you. You got to do what you got to do. So, and here,
absolutely,
look what you've done. You built something up.
They always say you follow what you love, and the money will follow. Or do what you love, the money will follow. Don't follow the money.
Don't follow the money unless you want to find the crooks. That's why I say always follow the money. You'll find the truth. So, well, with that said, thank you so much for giving me your time, because I know you're a busy man. Thank you, Commercial Construction Coffee Talk fans, for chiming in. Look for us for our next episode. And with that said, we're going to sign off from Atlanta and out in Western PA. Bob, thanks again for giving us your time. Say goodbye.
Thanks, David. Appreciate the opportunity to talk, and I had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. And give my best to your wife and your dog, Bummer, right?
Bummer, that's right. Bummer. I had to put it aside. He was yelling at everybody. Yeah. Bummer.
I'm a dog guy because I know I go back and forth with your wife on Facebook. So we're all dog guys there. So
next time we'll have to have. I'll introduce him. He'll be part of the group.
My dogs will be barking. So, well, with that said, thanks for chiming in, everybody. Thanks, Bob, for telling us about polished concrete and Rockerz Inc. And we'll catch you on our next episode. With that, we're going to sign off. Have a great rest of the week, guys. Talk to you later.